Hello, and welcome to the DUSS Symposium. We are connecting today from the University of Alberta, and we respectfully acknowledge that we are situated on Treaty 6 territory, the traditional lands of First Nations and Métis people. My name is Oleksandr Pankieiev. I'm the editor-in-chief of the Forum for Ukrainian Studies, the publication project of the Canadian Institute for Ukrainian Studies, which deals with the contemporary Ukraine and also the issues of geopolitics in that region. DUSS, which stands for Disrupted Ukrainian Scholars and Students, is a collaborative initiative of the Canadian Institute of Ukrainian Studies, Kule Institute for Advanced Studies, Kule Folklore Center, the Department of Modern Languages and Cultural Studies, and the Wirth Institute for Austrian and Central European Studies. The DUSS was created to help Ukrainian scholars and students whose professional careers and education have been affected and interrupted by Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. The DUSS Symposium that we have today showcases the groundbreaking research of virtual DUSS scholars in the fields of history, political science, law, and media studies. The scholars of Symposium features that we feature today are esteemed specialists in those respective fields and well positioned to discuss in depth the war that Russia unleashed on Ukraine over 10 years ago. Their research is based on rich empirical data, and the results contextualize different dimensions of the war and its effects on society, culture, politics, and etc. And I'm really honored to introduce our speakers today. Our first speaker is Yewhen Rachkov. Is an assistant professor at the Department of Historiography, Source Studies, and Archaeology at the Karazin University, at Karazin National University, Kharkiv. Between 2015 and 2017, he worked as a junior researcher on the project The University Culture in the Ukrainian Intellectual Space, 18th and 21st century. From 2018 to 2021, he served as a deputy head of the project City Faces, Practices of the Self-Representation of Multinational Cities in the Industrial and Post-Industrial Era. His research interests include cultural heritage, urban history, visual history, digital history, and history of the universities in Europe. Our next speaker is Maryna Bessonova, is an associate professor at the Department of International Relations at the Faculty of Law and International Relations, Boris Grychenko, Kyiv University. Maryna is also a part-time lecturer at the Department of World History, International Relations, and teaching methods of historical disciplines at Makarenko Sumy State Pedagogical University. Our next speaker is Olexiy Haran. Olexiy Haran is a professor of comparative politics at the National University of Kyiv-Mohyla Academy and a research director of the Democratic Initiatives Foundation, a leading Ukrainian analytical and sociological think tank. His latest book is From Brezhnev to Zelensky, Dilemmas of Ukrainian Political Scientists. Then we have Vitaliy Dankevych. Vitaliy Dankevych is the Dean of the Faculty of Law, Public Administration, and National Security at Polisia National University. His professional experience includes consultancy for the World Bank project supporting transparent land governments in Ukraine in 2018-19. Dr. Dankevych is a part of the global learning in agriculture community and a fellow at the George Washington University Elliott School of International Affairs Institute for European, Russian, and Eurasian Studies. His academic research focuses on food security and the ramification of the Russian war against Ukraine in the context of global food security. And our last but not least speaker today is Solomia Fedushko. is an associate professor and deputy head of scientific work at the Department of Social Communication and Information Activities at Lviv Polytech National University. She has also served as the Deputy Dean of Bachelor Studies at the Institute of Humanities and Social Sciences. Her interdisciplinary research interests include social communication, web mining, data, big data, information technologies, and computer science. So I'm really glad to welcome all of our speakers and also all our participants online. And now I will be transferring the floor to our first speaker, Yewhen.
Good day, everyone. Thank you, Oleksandr. Now I am sharing my screen to show the presentation. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude to the organizers and coordinators of the University of Alberta DUSS initiative for the opportunity to conduct my research despite the war. Special thanks to the organizers of the symposium. It's a great pleasure for me to be here with you today, and at the same time, it's great responsibility to be the first speaker. As the topic of my presentation, which you can see on the slide, is preservation and rethinking of Ukrainians' cultural heritage during the Russo-Ukrainian War, the initiative Sit in War. Before moving on to the main aspect of the presentation, I would like to brief talk about one project, actually City Face project. From 2018 to 2021, I served as a deputy head of the inter-university project City Face, practices of self-representation of multinational cities in the industrial and post-industrial era, sponsored by the Canadian Institute of Ukrainian Studies, University of Alberta. The City Face project lasted until 2021, allowing to bring together over 60 scholars from 5 research cities of Ukraine, I mean Dnipro, Donetsk, Vinnytsia, Zaporizhzhia, Odessa, and Kharkiv. Within the project, 9 scientific seminars were conducted. The final seminars took place in May 2021 with the participants of more than 50 researchers from higher educational institutions of various cities in Ukraine. Discussants at the seminar included experts from Ukraine, Germany, and Poland. One of the significant outcomes of the City Face project is the publication of a collective monograph in search of the city's face. The collective monograph was authored by 42 Ukrainian scholars. By the way, the book is freely available on the website of the Institute of History of Ukraine and the website of the City Face project. And a certain continuation of the City Face project became the research initiative City in War. Its full name is City in War: Destruction, Preservation, and Rethinking of the Cultural Heritage of Large Cities in eastern and southern Ukraine during the Russo-Ukrainian War. The project was initiated in May 2022 by a group of researchers from Kyiv and Kharkiv National University. The project is made possible by the financial support of the Contemporary Ukrainian Studies program at the Canadian Institute of Ukrainian Studies, University of Alberta. The initiative curators are myself, the project leader, Hanna Bondarenko, associate professor at Kyiv and Kharkiv National University, Olga Vovk, deputy director of the Academician Tronko Center for Ukrainian Studies and Local Law, and Natalia Ivanova, director of the Yermilov Center, Contemporary Art Center. The project City in War is an interdisciplinary open network predominantly composed of faculty and students from Ukrainian University. The initiative brings together the view of various experts on the process of destruction, preservation, and rethinking of cultural heritage in Ukraine, triggered by the Russian military aggression. My colleagues and I were struck by the extensive destruction and damage to diverse culture heritage in Ukraine due to the war. To provide an overall understanding of the scale of the tragedy, I will mention only that the expert community currently considers the losses to Ukrainian culture heritage to be the largest since World War II. As of March 25, 2024, the Ministry of Culture and Information Policy of Ukraine verified the destruction and damage to 1,046 cultural heritage sites and 1,974 cultural infrastructure objects in Ukraine. Culture heritage, both tangible and intangible culture heritage, continues to suffer losses, especially in the territory that remain occupied by Russian forces, and the fighting has taken place and continues. Moreover, the Russo-Ukrainian War has triggered a revaluation of the content and significance of cultural heritage in Ukrainian society, leading to a certain turn in the understanding and attitude towards culture in general. On the one hand, there is an increase in public interest in traditional cultural patterns, which are viewed as the foundations of Ukrainian national identity. On the other hand, heritage associated with Russian imperial and Soviet history has undergone critical reassessment. My colleagues and I have recognized the complexity of the mentioned process, as well as importance of preserving and rethinking Ukrainian culture heritage at the present stage. That is why, within the framework of the initiative City and War, we have directed the main research focus to the state of culture heritage in the major cities of the east and south of Ukraine. I mean 5 cities, Dnipro, Donetsk, Zaporizhia, Odessa, and Kharkiv, after the beginning of the war in Donbass in 2014 and the large-scale Russian invasion in 2022. At the center of our research are both tangible heritage, architectural monuments, urban area development, industrial heritage monuments, memorials, and landmarks, as well as museum, archival, and library artifacts and collections, and also intangible heritage, urban celebration, festivals, custom, language, street arts, cuisine, and the like. All of this is equally important because tangible and intangible heritage forms a unique urban historical and cultural landscape embodied in cultural values, collective cultural memory, and the identity of city residents, and also influences the formation of these components. An important component of the initiative City and War is the collection of expert views on the process of destruction, preservation, and revaluation of cultural heritage in Ukraine. As of today, the project team has conducted 36 semi-structured, in-depth interviews with representatives of the Ukrainian expert community as part of the expert opinion and digital heritage interview series. This amount to over 29 hours of recordings and more than 584 pages of transcribed interviews. 28 interviews have already been published on the project website and YouTube channel. The publication of interviews is done with the consent of the respondents. Some interviews are published in full, while others have been shortened either due to technical reasons or at the request of the respondents, which occurs occasionally. In the case of shortened version being published, a corresponding note is included in the description. The average duration of published interviews is approximately 49 minutes from 18 minutes to just over 2 hours in length. Communication with experts take place in video conferences format used in the Zoom program. In terms of recording time, the interviews can be divided into 3 groups recorded in 2022, 2023, and 2024. The support of the University of Alberta DUSS initiative has significantly increased the number of interviews. This work continues. Yesterday, I conducted another interview with historian Nadia Temirova about the monumental memorial space of the dissonant heritage of Donetsk, which will soon be published on the project resources. The respondents with whom the interviews were conducted reside and work in the several cities of Ukraine. You can see this on the map. It should be noted that the number of female experts with whom the interviews were conducted exceeds the number of male experts by more than twice. The selection of respondents is not random. First of foremost, the project team aims to invite experts who work with diverse culture heritage to participate in the discussions. It's indicative that throughout the project, the coordinators received only a few refusals to participate in interviews from the expert community. Typically, experts willingly respond to innovations for interviews, evidently recognizing the importance of discussing the pressing issues of preservation and revaluation Ukrainian culture heritage in time of war. The series of interviews, expert opinion, includes several formats, videos, podcasts, and text. I won't mention all the respondents with whom the interviews were conducted right now, only a few of them. Tatiana Pilipchuk, director of the Kharkiv Literary Museum, Marat Balis, director of the Center of State Scientific and Technical Archives of Ukraine, Olena Titova, member of the Ukrainian National Committee of the International Council on Monuments and Sites, and member of the National Union of Local Historians of Ukraine, Natalia Petrenko, director of the Korolenko Kharkiv State Scientific Library, Valentina Holodok, director of the Kharkiv Organizational and Methodological Tourism Center, Lyudmila Luchka, director of the Scientific Library of the Ales Gonchar Dnipro National University, Olga Soshnikova, acting director of the Sumtsov Kharkiv Historical Museum, Victoria Ivashchenko, director of the Museum of History of Karazin Kharkiv National University, Oleksandr Starik, acting director of Yavornitsky Dnipro National Historical Museum, Katerina Kublitska, architecture, restorer, public activist, and others. Overall, the interviews collected within the project are dedicated to the following relevant topics: preservation and rethinking of urban culture heritage during wartime, archaeological heritage and historical museums in times of war, preservation and rethinking of university heritage during wartime, literary museum and urban culture heritage in time of war, protection of movable culture heritage and operations of a historical museum, libraries and movable heritage during wartime, archives and archival heritage in time of war, contemporary art and strategic for dealing with dissonant heritage, representation of Ukrainian culture heritage on Wikipedia, solidarity, tourism, and challenging heritage in Ukraine during wartime, and so on. It should be noted that for each interviews, an original list of questions is created, allowing to determine the central theme of the conversation and take into account the field of professional activity of the respondent. At the same time, a number of key questions are common to the vast majority of interviews. Primarily, these questions address the issues of preserving Ukrainian culture heritage in wartime, conditions, strategies for reinterpreting culture heritage, defining principles for dealing with dissonant, in particular Russian and Soviet heritage, defining the role of various actors in the preservation and reinterpretation of culture heritage, the use of digital technologies for heritage conservation, and so on. Special attention during the interviews is paid to questions about the characteristic features of the culture heritage of key cities in Ukraine, especially in East and South. The interviews collected within the Sit-in War initiative represent important material for understanding the pre-war development specifics of the field, the current state, and future prospects of preserving and reinterpreting Ukrainian culture heritage. My colleagues and I have already begun analyzing the collected interviews. For example, respondents emphasize significant systemic problems regarding the preservation of Ukrainian culture heritage, with the majority of these issues existing even before the war. Primarily, they mention the indifference of ordinary people to the preservation of culture heritage, the lack of a unified heritage conservation system on Ukraine, legislative regulation issues in the field, problems with accounting and monitoring of damaged objects, excessive bureaucratization of the system, lack of funding, issues with specialist training, poor technical equipment, and the lack of proper attention from the government to heritage conservation issues, and so on. According to experts, the state heritage conservation system was insufficient, prepared for the challenges of war. An illustrative example in the museum collection that were not evacuated to safe places suffered damages due to the war or were stolen by Russian aggressors. Moreover, in the conditions of mass Russian shelling and bombing, some urban monuments and historical buildings in Ukrainian cities, particularly in Zaporizhia, Kyiv, Lviv, Odessa, Kharkiv, were fenced off with protective structures made of fire-resistant materials, sandbags, and plywood shields. Many respondents express doubts about the reliable of such protection, or argue for the need to reinforce it. Then Thevide experts call for not rushing to physically destroy dissonant heritage, but instead propose various strategies for its rethinking. Responding to questions about the application of digital technologies for heritage preservation and popularization during wartime, respondents usually emphasize the advantages of these technologies, almost or completely ignoring the drawbacks. They also tried to compare the situation in Ukraine with other countries, primarily Western Europe, the USA, and Canada. It's acknowledged that Ukrainian's heritage conservation system lacks governmental programs for digitize culture heritage, necessary funding and technical equipment, and there is a shortage of specialists dedicated to creating digital database of Ukrainian diverse culture heritage, etc. In addition to conducted interviews with experts, the Sit-in War initiative team aims to create a platform for experts discussions on the mentioned topics. For example, on November 10, 2022, within the framework of the Third International Scientific and Practical Conference, Transformation of Historical Memory, the project team organized and held a roundtable discussion titled Preservation and Rethinking of the Culture Heritage of Ukrainian Cities in Times of the War, History, Politics, and Memory. Also, in early 2023, a special issue of the academic journal Vestnik of Karazin Kharkiv National University series History was launched. It contains research by initiative members dedicated to the issue of destruction, preservation, and rethinking of diverse urban culture heritage during the Russo-Ukrainian War. Finally, it should be noted that the Sit-in War initiative will continue at least until the end of 2024. my colleagues and I aspire to continue collecting interviews with experts in the field of Ukrainian culture heritage, as well as discussing relevant issues of its preservation and reinterpretation. Additionally, we are working on updating the project website, including the database that will contains information about culture heritage sites in the major cities of Eastern and Southern Ukraine. Thank you for your attention. I eagerly await your question during the Q&A session. Thank you.
Thank you, Yewhen. And our next speaker is Maryna Bessonova. And Yewhen, thank you for reminding our online audience that at the end we will have Q&A session. To ask your questions, you need to use Q&A window, which is located at the bottom of your screen. Please post all of your questions there, and then we will read them at the end. Maryna, floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Now I will start my presentation. Please tell me if it is okay and you see my full screen, or probably not full. Oh, now it's okay. Once more, I would like to present myself. I'm Maryna Bessonova, Associate Professor, PhD in History at the Department of International Relations, Faculty of Law and International Relations at Boris Glinchenko, Kyiv Metropolitan University. And the main topic of my research and of my today's presentation is the war wave of Ukrainian migrants. This topic is very closely connected with my personal story. That's why I would like first seconds or probably minutes to deal with this. First of all, the beginning of war, almost the whole 2022, I spent in Kiev, and the wave of people who fled from Kiev, as from other cities which suffered from the very beginning from the bombings and so on, was some kind of everyday life since that time. You can see here's my personal footage from the window of my apartment in Kiev on the 24th of February 2024. So you see a big traffic jams and people were trying to leave the city. Somebody was moving on the one bank of the river Dnieper, and other people were moving on the another bank of the Dnieper. And here you see the same street, the same window, 3 days later, no cars. Somebody just left it. One of the how to say problems for big cities now is the space for parking the car, and you can see that unfortunately that was times that it was a lot of parking slots in Kiev. Here you can see the footages where I and my family we spent almost half a month and a half every night in the shelter in our apartment, because it was avoiding by these bombings and so on, but then we get used to it. So now even when we have this air alarm, we don't leave our apartment. And this is one of the footages which I made when I go to the shop at this February, March. Still some reclama, these big boards, they were working, and there was some kind of information for people how many Russian tanks, aircraft and something like that were damaged at the beginning of the war. And also you can see the screenshot which I made, because like historians, we always try to make some kind of personal archives. This is the CNN footage of the 24th of February, where in the news they were discussing the issue of these things, war crisis, as this called it, in Ukraine. And one of the main how to say events which were they discussed, that thousands of people were fleeing the capital city to escape the Russian attack. I also personally is very connected with my native city, Zaporizhia, because there live my family, my sister, my mother, my former colleagues, my former students. And here is footages which are well known for everybody who lives in Zaporizhia. It's not all, unfortunately, because this footage is supposed not to be in any normal country, where the personal apartments of people were damaged and they were killed. And this is personal footages of my sister, because they lived near the house, like 100 meters from it, which was damaged, and they have also this problem. The first month of the war, I was connected with Zaporizhzhia, also with my colleagues from my former work at Zaporizhzhia National University, and they reacted to the events of war and to the fact that many people from south part of Ukraine, from southeast part of Ukraine, they were migrating through Zaporizhzhia to the other more safe places in Ukraine, and Zaporizhzhia became some kind of hub for these eternally replaced persons and for inner migrants in Ukraine. The task of this, my colleagues, and I joined them virtually because I helped them with informational things by dealing with the web page of their fund in the Facebook and with their website. They were dealing with people, and this issue that people are migrating and they are forced to migrate, that became, you know, one of the most vivid pictures of this war. This is one of the most fresh footages from Zaporizhzhia. It was like 1 month ago in March in 2024. And this is just to show that the reason why people fled from the country, unfortunately, is the same. It's the issues of safety. About my personal experience, not all the time I spent in Ukraine since February 2022. As all Ukrainians know, that in autumn 2022, winter 2023, it was a big problem with the electricity, especially in Kiev. And this is once more the footages from my window, the same street, and when the lights were on and when the lights were off. It was impossible, as now in Kharkiv, to live because, for example, in my apartment, there is no gas. So if there were no electricity, it was not possible to make food, to work, even there was no water because it was not pushed up on the high floors, and there's no elevator. So I'm supposed to walk to the shops from the 18th floor by foot. And it was a good fitness, but not good opportunity to work. And all these events push my daughter to experience a winter relocation because she's working in the international internet company, and they ask everybody who have chance to move from Ukraine for a few months to do this, just that this company can make obligation before their clients. That is why, together with my daughter, we make this almost half Europe trip to Croatia, where we spent 3 months. And there I find myself that I was thinking about how do people who live in Ukraine and now living in other countries, how do they feel themselves? In Zagreb, in Croatia, we contacted with the Ukrainian diaspora, with other Ukrainians. I also have an opportunity to teach few lectures at Zagreb University, but this pushed me to the main idea of my research, just to explore how do people deal with all these issues connected with the forced migration. If to talk a little bit about the theoretical part, we know traditionally that there is 4 waves of Ukrainian migration since the end of the 18th century. There is some kind of scientific discussions about whether it was the 5th wave, but almost there is no discussion that war caused the 6th or the war wave of Ukraine. Here you can see the screenshots of some information from the United Nations High Commissioner of the Refugees just by the time of 28th of June in 2022. It was numbers that almost 4.5 million people leave the country. Of course, it's now very difficult to calculate whether they immigrated and did not return to Ukraine. Here you can see numbers which shows another calculations, but everybody agrees that there is this war wave, and it is already the aim of research of different scientists. The aim of my research was to study the main narratives of Ukrainian immigrants in this war wave. just to understand what is the peculiarities of this war wave, to find out what are the main issues for the migrants of this wave, find out what are the main difficulties which people had during this migration, and to figure out the main dimensions of the new collective trauma in Ukrainian history. And my research is conducted in two main vectors. I conducted a small survey and a small study of social networks, because it's a lot of material, and it just I think that I'm now only on the beginning of this, my collecting all these materials. Survey. I make a questionnaire which I spread towards people whom I know and ask them who migrated and ask them to fill this form. And I also ask them to spread this survey to the people whom they know in already immigration, because people, as you can see on the screen, not all of them would like to put their own full name and surname. That is why I was thinking that if to push this survey to some kind of social networks, probably people would not agree to answer this question. That is why, to be sure that I will collect material, I first of all spread it among people whom I know. 41 respondents reacted on my apply. The age of them is from 22 to 77 years old. The majority of them are females, about 38 females and 3 males, and the majority of them are people with higher education. Here you can also see the main jobs which these people occupied. There are lecturers and teachers, managers, research fellows, finance analysts, journalists, and lawyers, advocates, people from the customs, engineers, and so on. So this is just to understand what opinion of what kind of people. Now, later in my presentation, I will describe to you. I also make some kind of small data from what parts of Ukraine do these people who fill in my survey migrated. There are people from Kiev and Kiev Oblast, from Kharkiv and Kharkiv Oblast, from Kramatorsk, Zaporizhia, Berdyansk, Kryvyi Rih, Vinnytsia, and Ternopil. So some of the people have experienced this doubled migration, because some of them are from Donetsk and Donetsk region. So first they migrated to some closer cities in 2014, and unfortunately in 2022 they have this second migration because of the full-scale invasion. Here you can see on the map what countries these people moved to. A lot of them stopped in Europe, and some people who who fill in my survey, they are in Canada and the United States. I also, in this my survey, asked them a question whether they still have homes in Ukraine. Unfortunately, the majority of them still have their homes, so they just for safety moved from Ukraine to the other countries. And 5 people answered that they had their homes before the occupation of the Ukraine in 2014. So now they even don't know whether they have their homes or not. I also asked them, what are the reasons of your migration? Of course, I understand that the main reason was the war, but for me it was interesting to understand how do they feel these reasons of migration, and what words they will find to describe how do they see these reasons of migration. So it was open question, and you can see some answers of them, and I just put by red the main as I will say, keywords: that threat, rockets fell, energy crisis, fear, danger. Here is another slide where you also see this their response of the reasons of their migrations: war, missiles, safety, fear, and so on, occupation. One more, I was very, it was very difficult to read these answers, because I understand that under all these things, there is a personal histories and family histories too. If to summarize the main reasons of migration, as it was in this survey, I can say that there are fear, war, threat, and danger. I also was asking people when do they migrated, and the great majority fled the country in March 2022. So it was the first month of the full-scale invasion. If to analyze, we can say that it was forced migration, and the main reason for people why they fled the country was the war, and many of them moved to there with their family members. I also asked people in this survey whether they have physical contacts with Ukraine. I mean, whether they return back at least for a few times, for a few days since the day when they migrated. The majority of them have this experience. Some of them returned and just stay till now in Ukraine, and there are a few people who make this once or for a very small period of time. So I mean that they are not only watching what is going on in Ukraine by news or contacts by phone with their relatives and friends, but they also visited Ukraine after they fled the country in March 2022. The main reason of their temporary returning back was family affairs, health issues, and nostalgia. You can see that there were different other options to to select, but the great majority answered that there were some kind of family affairs. I also asked them about different type of difficulties which they had during the migration, and if to make some kind of groupings like difficulties when you start this migration, difficulties when you already stay during your migration, you also can find some kind of keywords which are repeating from different open answers of people who took part in this survey. The first difficulties that was named as lines at the border. Somebody mentioned that they stay for a few hours, and others were talking about even 4 days on the border to cross it. Quest for trains, many checkpoints, and panic, separation from relatives, and uncertainty. And also you can see here it's like quote from these open answers that the main difficulties was not like physical, that they are tired, that they have to travel for a long time, but it was psychological type of difficulties: absence of parents, absence of relatives, separation from my husband. It was moral state. I was thinking about what will be with people who are still in Ukraine. And here is like my generalization of what were the main difficulties. There really are more psychological, and with the feelings like panic, loneliness, fear for relatives, and separation from family and parents. I also asked people whether they feel themselves like strangers in the host country, and you can see that the majority, you know, it's like 50-50. So not as a stranger, but not as a local people. A few people answered that they feel like a stranger. It's 3 people that gave this like the biggest amount that they feel themselves an alien. And some people are okay. So for them, it was not a big stress to appear in the other country. I also asked them just a direct question: do you feel yourself as a refugee? And give them like this definition of this term. And you see that the majority answered that they do not feel themselves a refugee. So they probably they have this plan once more to return back to Ukraine. I also was asking them whether they contact Ukrainians during their temporary migration. The majority are in contact with other migrants, and especially less than the number of people who just in contact with Ukrainians. They are contacting with Ukrainian diaspora, and there were very many open question. They are talking about very good attitudes from the representatives of Ukrainian diaspora, and help and assistance, and a very positive atmosphere that really helped people to adopt to life in the countries. I also, in my survey, asked attitudes about their attitudes towards Russians. You can see that I make some kind of small difference in these questions. What's the attitude towards Russia? What's your attitude towards Russians who still stay in Russia? And what is your attitude towards, or whether it's changed attitude to the Russians who leave Russia? And as you see, the majority says that yes, their opinion towards different kinds of Russians changed. And if to summarize the main, characteristic words or keywords of these attitudes towards Russian, you can see it on the screen: the hatred, hate, that they're slaves, they're crowds, they are our enemies, and so very negative attitudes, and of course we understand why. Another part of my research was connected with the searching of social networks. I registered in different types of Facebook groups for Ukrainians in Canada, in Croatia, in Great Britain, in Romania. And the main things and topics which are discussed there, they are already connected with the questions of searching job, of finding the accommodation, of some kind of help and assistance, asking of help and assistance in the countries where these people are staying. To finish, I would like to say that it is only first my reflections of my research, because I was just finding the materials. The survey gives me an opportunity to understand how do people see the reasons of the migrations, the difficulties before and during the migration, and their attitudes towards the migration and the new society where they live now. And the study of social networks, it's like first generalization, gives me an opportunity to understand what are the main issues of the adaptation in the new country and how it differs from the like non-forced migration, which was earlier in the history of Ukraine. And of course, it also gives an opportunity to see some issues of the relations within diaspora. I mean, people who already for a long time are living out of Ukraine, and these newcomers of this sixth war wave of Ukraine. And the last slide is about my next steps that I would like to finish to collect the materials, because there is a lot of them, and to finish my article, which I already designed and just have to finish it. And I also plan to implement the results of my research into my courses, which I teach in both universities where I'm working now. It's disciplines, the world migration processes, domestic and foreign policy of the states of Western Europe and North America, the Ukrainian diaspora and the international relations, and immigration and the humanitarian factor of international relations. Thank you very much. It is all in brief, and thank you for your attention and support.
Thank you, Maryna. Thank you, Maryna, for really interesting presentation. And our next speaker is Oleksiy Haran. Oleksiy, floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much. Many thanks to CIUS. It's a great pleasure and privilege to be again at CIUS, but now in online format. Let me start, first of all, with maybe some clarification to one of the slides which Maryna showed. And I believe there would be no disagreement between us. It's about attitudes to Russia, that the main words which are associated with Russians right now, hatred and what else? They are our enemy, and so on and so forth. But clarification is that, what do you mean here by Russians? We are talking about Russians in Russia. Right? We are not talking about ethnic Ukrainians or even Russian speakers who are living in Ukraine. Because these people, if they consider Ukraine to be their motherland, they are a legitimate part of Ukrainian political nation. Yes, we have actually, sometimes we can hear from called radicals that if you speak Russian language, then you speak the language of enemy. I think we shouldn't use actually this language. There is a natural process of derussification from below. And I think that's the most important. Because again, the war showed that we are a political nation, and all the ethnic groups, whatever is ethnicity, whatever is language, they are part of Ukrainian political nation if they consider Ukraine to be their motherland, and they are ready to fight for Ukraine as their motherland. Okay, the point, one of the points, my points, I am a professor of comparative politics, so I'm a political scientist, but I work at Democratic Initiatives Foundation, and you know that we are conducting a lot of sociological polls. So I would like to share with you some ideas, because there's number of polls, but some ideas about what was going on in Ukraine since the full-scale invasion. And we often hear that the full-scale invasion dramatically changed the views of Ukrainians. And I think here it's important to stress that these changes started earlier. that these changes started, well, they were, they were in the there was a huge process since Ukrainian independence with two ups, the Orange Revolution and European Maidan. And then, so this was the background for what happened after the full-scale invasion. So let me share the screen with you. Okay. And you see the slides, right? Okay, so wonderful. So this is the traditional question. Whom do you consider yourself first and foremost? So you need to choose. We know that identities are overlapping, but we need to choose here. The question is first, your first identity, your dominating identity. Is it citizen of Ukraine, or is it a citizen of Ukraine, red line, or it's kind of regional or local identity? So we saw there was a dangerous trend before 2004. This was really dangerous, right? Because actually Ukrainians were almost divided. But then there was up during the Orange Revolution, then in European Maidan, and now this figure goes up to 72%.
Oleksiy,
Okay, so,
could you make it this slide bigger? Just go and start the
okay. Let me okay, slide it. Okay. Slide it. Okay. So now this line of all Ukrainian identities, the citizen on Ukraine, is up to 72%, while the regional or local identity is only 18%. Then the question, are you proud to be a citizen of Ukraine? And again, you see that there are ups, red line. So you're proud. During the Orange Revolution, then European Maidan and the start of Russian aggression, and now it goes to 90%. 90% are proud of being Ukrainian. Okay, I like this slide, and I need to remind that before 2014, Ukrainian approach to geopolitics was quite ambivalent. So if Ukrainians were asked, would you like to be in the EU? Ukrainians are saying yes. If they were asked, are you going to be in the union with Russia and Belarus? Most Ukrainians would say yes. So now it's definitely changed. This approach totally collapsed, and now you have like a mirror after the 2014. So I always show this slide to foreign counterparts or to journalists when they're asking about NATO attitude to Russia. So I always show it to prove that, we were a peace-loving nation, and this is again joining NATO. Those who wanted to join NATO were only 12% before 2014. The non-bloc, non-alignment was favored by most of Ukrainians, and actually when Yanukovych declared non-allied status for Ukraine, he used this fact that most Ukrainians were in favor of being neutral. So these two slides are very, in my mind, it's very good explanation when it comes to the so-called threat of NATO from the territory of Ukraine. And now, joining NATO, it's almost 80%. Joining EU is almost 80%. One more positive thing is that traditionally, if Ukrainians are asked, would you like to have a strong hand, leader with a strong hand, a strong leader, Ukrainians are saying yes. But when we ask, what regime do you prefer, democratic regime, autocratic regime? So after the full-scale invasion, we got the figures that 64% of Ukrainians, they prefer democracy, and only 14% are in favor of some authoritarian methods. So 64% against 14%, I think this is a very good figure, even a very good number, even for European countries. So these are positive things, and they didn't disappear. They continue to, these figures, these numbers, they continue to dominate in Ukrainian society right now. However, now we have more contradictory results of oops, just a moment. Oops, no, sorry. Results of the polls. Let me check it. Oh, okay, here it is. So this is the latest result, which was presented by the Rachkov Center. It's just, came out, so I didn't have even time to translate it. But you see, this is a number of those who think that Ukraine is going in the right direction. And this is wrong direction. And traditionally, as you know, Ukrainian approach to authorities, Ukrainians are very critical about authorities. I believe this is connected with the history of Ukraine, of being under foreign power dominance. But you see that before the war, only 20% considered that the country is going in the right direction. 66% said wrong direction. And this suddenly changed when the war started. Okay, so, and I believe because Ukrainians realize that they are on the right side of history, then that we are fighting for freedom, for our existence against the empire of evil. And that's why Ukrainians started to believe the authority of Zelensky was very, very high at that point. So basically the authority of Zelensky also developed in this way with different numbers, definitely, but the general trend is here. So the highest was in the March of 2023, 60% who were saying that the country is going in the right direction. And I think because we were so optimistic about our potential counteroffensive in 2023. It was based on the result of Ukrainian counteroffensive in 2022. So there was an optimism in the society, but then it started to diminish. So, and again, it's connected. I believe it's connected with situation on the battlefield. By the way, our offensive on the sea was successful, but how to say it, in the fields, it was much more dramatic. So, and now you see the situation that basically Ukrainian society is divided. Almost 40% think right direction, 40% think wrong direction. So Ukrainians now are divided. But, again, we may see a silver line in the clouds that, look, before the war it was 20%, now it's almost 40%. So anyway, it's twice more. And Ukrainian belief in history, belief in victory remains. So the first column is those who are sure that we will win. The second column is rather sure that we will win. So basically it's necessary to combine these two columns and then to see the result. And basically it shows that the figure of Ukrainians who believe that Ukrainian will win in total is more than 80%. So even now, you see that number of those who are sure that Ukraine will believe is decreasing, but the number of those who consider that it's more likely to happen is also increasing. So when we sum it up, it will be 83%. 83%. So 83% of Ukrainians now believe in victory. Definitely, Ukrainians right now, because previously a lot of Ukrainians were thinking that the war would end by the end of the year 23, now 24, and this number is decreasing. Now more Ukrainians believe that it will take 1-2 years or even 3-5 years. Okay, what is interesting also here is that when we ask, okay, actually you see that this is in the first column, so the war would end by the end of the year. Here it is 22, then March 23, highly optimistic, and then this figure is decreasing to 30, almost 35%. Oh, no, sorry, 22%. 35 is that the victory will be in 1-2 years. So an interesting thing is what Ukrainians consider to be a victory. And definitely most are talking about full liberation of Ukraine, destruction of the Russian army, or even disintegration of Russia. This is a majority. However, 26% of Ukrainians are ready to give up some of the territory of Ukraine, and still they would consider it a victory. So this is 26% is the sum of those who is ready to make compromise regarding Crimea or Donbass, or even some of the territories that were occupied after full-scale invasion. So this number increased 26%. Well, actually, this is not surprising because we have now the war became the war of attrition, you know, with all these bombardments of Ukraine, energy objects. So this is not surprising, but this is somehow also dangerous trend. So still Ukrainians mostly believe in that we are able to liberate the territory from full Ukrainian territory from Russian troops. Now, the trust to social institutions. Okay, so this is a balance of trust and distrust. So trust minus distrust. You see that basically, if we are talking in the first place, armed forces, volunteers, National Guard of Ukraine with very, very high positive percentage of the balance of trust and distrust. Regarding president, the institute of president, so we didn't put names here. The trust to Zelensky is decreasing, but it's still high. It's 60%, almost 60%. So this is good. Any Western politician would envy such a level of trust, especially if the country is during the third year of the war. However, if we are talking about the balance, then the balance would be 26%. And what is interesting, that the balance of trust and mistrust to the Institute of President in January was 36, and in March, 26. So it's not like, you know, diminishing very slow and gradually, but it's quite abrupt. And I think we should think about it. And actually, President Zelensky himself and people around him should think about what happened. And I believe, again, these are general factors like situation on the front line, the lack of supply from our Western partners, but definitely these are all connected also to scandals that we have in Ukraine connected with corruptions, corruption, in some cases through the absence of rule of law. So the scandals which happened. And people would like to have justice, you know. And when they see there's no justice, you know, they're very critical about what the government is doing in different fields. And definitely also the dismissal of Zaluzhny. Again, I think that we are not ready to talk whether it was justified from military point of view. Maybe Syrsky, you know, presented better ideas, but the main thing is the dismissal of Zaluzhny was communicated badly with Ukrainian society. And we need to think about it, and the government should think about it. In general, I think the government need not to create over-exaggerated optimism like it happened at the beginning of 2023, but have a serious, transparent talk to people. And I believe in this case, people will, it's not easy, but it's better than create over-exaggerated expectations or to cover some corruption scandals. Then if we analyze the second part, minus, you know, this is also traditional. Minus 30, anti-corruption bureau, political parties, office of the prosecutor general, government of Ukraine, court system, the parliament, and political parties in general, which is minus 63. So 63% of Ukrainians, this is a balance of trust and distrust to political parties, which actually I will show the next slide. Because, you know, sometimes opposition is happy. Our opposition is happy. Okay, the level of president is slowing down, is going down. So we may capitalize on that. So this is good for us. But in reality, when the question was put, are you ready to, do you see now political forces whom you may trust power after the war? Most people are saying no. Okay, no. We don't see this political force. And I think this is a very bad signal, not only for our authorities, but also for opposition as well. So people do not see these forces. And this number is increasing. So it's necessary to think about trust to political parties or political forces in general. Finally, my final slide is that you know, the talk about the potential for conducting presidential any elections in Ukraine, and presidential or parliamentary, and most Ukrainians are against it. But when we analyze and when we are responding to our counterparts in the West or in the global South about impossibility of having the elections during the war, definitely there are legal reasons for that. By the way, regarding parliamentary elections are openly prohibited by the constitution. With presidential elections, it's more complicated, but judging from the spirit from constitution, they shouldn't be held under martial law. So this is the first point. The second point are security reasons, but the third point for me is the main one. Elections are necessary not only to just tick the box. Okay, we have conducted elections. If you want to have elections, we would like to have them competitive, really competitive. And competitive elections would mean that government would strongly criticize opposition, opposition would strongly criticize the government. So who would benefit from it during the war? Definitely Russia. So this is the main, for me, this is the main reason why we don't want to have these elections during the war, and actually most Ukrainians understand. However, as you see, the numbers of those who is elections slightly decreased, and the number of those who is in favor of elections increased. That means, I think this is connected with the trust to authorities. So the more people are disappointed by the doings or wrongdoings by the authorities, the more they would incline towards the idea of let's change the political force. But so far, most Ukrainians are against elections, well, absolute majority actually, and most Ukrainians consider that these elections would be detrimental to the unity during the war. So I will stop here, and then I will be ready to discuss more questions connected to the polls. Thank you.
Thank you, Oleksiy, for your really detailed presentation about the numbers that we have, really recent numbers.
I am sorry, it's not detailed. It's just, very quick. Because if it's detailed, then it will take at least 1 hour for that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. And the next speaker, Vitaliy Dankevych. Vitaliy, you can proceed.
Thank you, dear colleagues. So, tell everything good with my presentation?
Yes, we can hear. We can see it, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Dear colleagues, first of all, thank you for such possibility to speak and discuss very important question. It's a very good idea that today we speak about our city. It's a very good idea that today we speak about problem of migration. It's a very good idea that we speak about political situation, and speaking about me, I try to tell you more about economy. When we speak about economy and when we analyze Ukraine, we need to understand that Ukraine is an agrarian sector. Ukraine is a country which one of the main leader when we speak about food production, and we now need to understand what situation we have, where we can take money, and when we speak about our future, we need to analyze what role will local government plays when we speak about post-war reconstruction of Ukraine and about our agriculture. Speaking about some data, we need to analyze that agriculture sector is very important for Ukraine because more than 17% of our population work in agrarian sector. When we speak about money, the main resource which we need now for our country, we speak about 53% of export revenue that comes from agrarian sector, and more than 20% of GDP forms in agrarian sector. Why agrarian sector is so important for Ukraine and why we have such results? Because in Ukraine we have the main resource, it's our black soil, and if we analyze situation which we have now, I think one of the main reasons why Russian try to take all our territory, because they want to have our resources. We speak about land resources and another. And in Ukraine, we concentrate the main resource, it's our black soil. In Ukraine, we tell for this black soil Chernozem, and we have more than 9% of the world's reserve of Chernozem in Ukraine. So we use all these resources, we produce food, and if you look at this map, it's very difficult to find not very big country in all world. We speak about Ukraine, but it's very easily to find Ukraine in this graph because we one of the biggest producer of sunflower seed. We one of the biggest producer of corn, barley, rapeseed, wheat, soybeans, and another products. We country which produce all this food export and have very good results in this field. So it was for a long period, but now we have a war and situation change. When we speak about nowadays, Russian Federation, it was a very good idea from my colleagues that Russian Federation tried to fight in a different front. They tried to fight in a military one, in propaganda, in economic front, but if they don't have some success in military way, they try to destroy our economy. And such picture we can find from different fields and different types from Ukraine. When Russian Federation tried to destroy our economy, our potential, because it's money which we need for our economy, for our soldiers, for our protection. So now they use technology and try to destroy main infrastructure of Ukraine. We speak about elevators, we speak about livestock farms, we speak about poultry farm. It's a very big challenge for all our economy, and we try to find a way how to work and how to organize our activity in this situation. When we speak about nowadays, we need to understand that even now it's difficult to control and to use more than 30% of our territory. We speak about some pollution of this territory, and we speak about occupation. So it's very difficult to produce food and export this food to different countries in the world. When we speak about this period of war, Russian Federation tried to destroy our agrarian sector and close all our logistic way. It's a very big challenge, and our farmers try to find way from this challenge. When we speak about my research, I try to analyze, when we speak about local policy, when we speak about war and post-war period, how our local policy need to develop when we speak about rural territory, how we can recover our rural territory, and what sphere in agriculture we need to develop when we speak about modern condition of a war, condition when we speak about problem of logistic, and another challenge what we have in Ukraine. I try to communicate with a lot of farmers, with a lot of people from government, local communities, who live in a period of a war and in a territory which affected by a war. We try to analyze what farmers do when we speak about the first day of a war. We try to analyze how farmers organize their agriculture, what they did, how they try to diversify their business, and what ways they choose to organize their processing in a modern conditions. So I, with my colleagues, organize such interview in Zhytomyr. We communicate with a lot of farmers and speak about different sphere of their activity. It was questions about storage. It was questions about dairy farm activity, because it was a lot of problem how to organize their business, and they told about a lot of problems and a lot of diversification which they use how to organize activity in these conditions. We speak about price disparity, because when we speak about period of war, the main problem for small business and farmers, it was price disparity, because for them it was very difficult to find channel how to export their products. And when we speak about the price, it was very difficult to find partners who will give them some elements for their conditions and their activity in this period. So we try to organize such interview and find a way how to organize business in these conditions. One of the main problem, it was a problem with labor resource, because now a lot of people, as my colleague told, a lot of people move to another country, a lot of people move from one territory of Ukraine to another, and a lot of people join to armed force. So when we speak about agriculture, now we have a lack of people, and it's very difficult to organize business. When we speak about big agrarian company, they can find some people, but when we speak about small farmers, for them it's a very big problem to find these people, to reserve these people, and to organize this activity. And even in some regions, we have situation that almost a lot of farms, they stop their business, and it's a very big problem now for local territory, for local budget, what to do, because when we speak about agrarian business, it was only one way how people work in some territory. So we try to speak about all this situation, and we try to analyze and accumulate some recommendation for local community what to do in this situation, and we try to make some prognosis of their future, how they can diversify their business, how they can find new resource and another investors or another people who will invest in this money. What we find interesting that now in Ukraine, when we speak about agrarian business, some benefits have small farmers, because when we speak about small farmers, they work in their own land, they try to diversify their business, and they produce some foods for domestic market. So when we speak about future of agrarian sector, we need to find some balance between very big farmers and very big agrarian holdings and small farmers, which is more better when we speak about situation of COVID, which was, and now situation of war. In these cases, we try to find some problems which now have our farmers, and we try to organize some recommendation for policy, its local policy and government policy, what our agrarian sector need now, and how government can help our agrarian sector, because it's the main sector which give money for our economy, and it's very important now to protect agrarian sector, because if we speak about our future, we need this money to protect our country. So now it's very important to organize logistic way, because the main problem for agrarian sector, it was logistic, because Russian Federation, they stop the main logistic way which we have in Black Sea, and situation which we have now in European region show that it's impossible to use logistic way to Europe, because we don't have infrastructure, and we found that it's a political way, so we need to use our logistic way in Black Sea and try to cooperate with our partner, and try to cooperate with our buyers in different countries of the world, because they need wheat, they need maize, they need corn from Ukraine, and it's impossible to find another product and another country which can produce such food and give this food to another country. When we speak about post-war reconstruction of Ukraine agrarian sector and about local policy, we try to focus on key priorities, which is the main important today. The main important for agrarian sector and for local policy, it's organizing processing. Speaking about agriculture in Ukraine, we produce a lot of raw materials and export all these raw materials to another country. We need to organize this processing in our rural territory. It will be good for our budget, it will be good for people who can find jobs, and it will be good for all our economy, because we don't need export a lot of raw materials, we can export some finished goods, and when we speak about Europe, we can find people who need food from Ukraine and not raw materials but finished products. Another element which is very important, we need to develop livestock sector in Ukraine. when we speak about European farm, when we speak about our partners and their agriculture, they try to find some balance between crop production and livestock sector. So it's very important to invest some money. It's very important to give some credits and develop livestock in Ukraine. It will be very good for rural territory. It will be very good for economy, ecology, and social sphere. Another what we find that we need to find balance between big agrarian holding and smaller producer in Ukraine. Smaller producer now, it's a European model of development of agrarian sector. So we need to give some priorities for such farmers because they can more diversify their activity in a period of a war and in a period of modern challenge which we have. This war shows that we need to cooperate. We speak about people, we speak about our volunteers, and we speak about agrarian sector. It's very difficult to organize business when we have a lot of challenge alone. That is why a lot of our farmers now try to cooperate. They try to use machinery, they try to use some fuel, some chemicals and other elements which they need for agriculture, and they have better results when we speak about such activity. This period and period of war show that we need to diversify our business when we speak about agrarian sector. It's impossible now to produce only some typical raw materials, export them to another country, and even now in Zhytomyr we have a lot of agrarian company which try to produce some special products for this region. They find domestic buyers of these products. They try to find new markets in Europe, and this way is very good for agriculture. So it was the main priorities which we find with another colleagues who work with me, and now we only in the beginning of this empirical study. We try to analyze situation which we have, because when we speak about agrarian sector, when we speak about conditions which we have now, every month this situation is changed, and it's very important analyze this situation. It's very important find some good recommendations and find some cooperations, and only in this way we can find way from each challenge which now we have, and in future I believe that we will win in this war, and agrarian sector will be one of the main locomotive of our economy. It will give a very good budget for Ukraine, but budget not only from raw materials and raw production, but budget from organizing, processing in rural territory, and it will be very good effect for our rural territory, for our economy, ecological and social sphere. So thank you for your attention. Thank you for such opportunity and for organize this event, because now it's very important to speak about Ukraine, to speak about situation which we have, and try to find some better future for all sphere of our activity. Thank you.
Thank you, Vitaliy, for your presentation. And our last speaker today is Solomia Fedushko, sorry. And Solomia, will you be speaking?
Yes.
Do you want us to play the video?
Oh, I will be speaking, and sorry, without video, but without with presentation. Okay. Could you see my presentation?
Yeah.
Okay, and the full screen. Okay. Dear colleagues, it's a great honor for me to present the result of my project, Digital Stress defense, empowering online user against threats with stress resistance. The agenda of my presentation, and after the start of Russo-Ukrainian war,
we still cannot see the full screen, the full slide. So
okay, the full slide you can see, and maybe it's better.
You need to go to показати slide, probably, and
okay. Показати. Показати. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. It's okay? Could you see this?
Not yet. Could you probably спочатку? Click спочатку.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, probably it doesn't work something. So we will see it. Yeah.
Okay. Could you see it?
Yeah, we can. Yeah.
With this. Okay. Okay, this is first agenda of my presentation, and after the start of Russo-Ukrainian war, I actively began to research information influence on the internet and methods of spreading disinformation and information war. So the first part of my speech is the analysis of digital stress factors of online users. And what is digital stress, especially in context of Russo-Ukrainian war? Digital stress refers to many aspects, from adoption to new technologies to harming online users. And every day, digital stressors include impersonation, harassment, public shaming, hacking, feeling overwhelmed, and a complex form of digital stress is caused by war-related issues. The stress arises from excessive information and over dependence on many applications and messaging services. The amount of information disorders increase digital stress. Moreover, information pollution worsened these challenges with incomplete and irrelevant data about war. Digital stress, like a moral stress, physical stress, is beneficial at the optimum stress level. However, COVID, war, and other issues cause too much stress and burnout in our life, in Ukraine and in all world. Unfortunately, the Russo-Ukrainian war has led to issue of information disorder in Ukraine. Information disorder syndrome is a sharing of developing of false information with or without the intent of harming, and they are considered as misinformation, malinformation, and disinformation. Next. Malinformation includes public harassment and hate speech, misinformation, false connection, and misleading content, and disinformation, manipulated and fabricated content. This information aims to cause harm and create digital stress for internet users. And to determine the level of digital stress, this information and other information influence in context of Russo-Ukrainian war, I have conducted the survey, what is digital stress for you? And the focus group is students. I have pursued the 229
Solomia,
feedbacks.
Solomia, do you scroll your slides because we still see just only your first slide?
Oh, I am in 14 slides. Maybe I show in this way. I don't know why. Maybe a bigger. Oh. Okay. Maybe in this way I can show you
Yeah,
the
just
slides.
if you cannot show for the slides like
It's a technical.
yeah, you just need to scroll the slides down that we can see what you
Okay.
are speaking about.
And it's my slides about digital stress, about stressors, and about diagram of digital stress, and information disorder, and the type of information disorder, and this information is important issue for Ukraine in our war, and the result of our my survey. It's okay. And as we see from the slide, more than half students has a negative online influence, and also more half of students had physical symptoms such as headache, insomnia due to extensive use of internet during war. And the significant number of respondents had information disorder while communicated online, and 23% of the respondents reported experiencing information disorder often, while 47% have it sometimes. And the half of the students felt overwhelmed. More than a quarter had a negative impression, and less than a quarter experienced harming personal attack. And now we speak about triggers that provoke an increasing of information stress. Due to war, 41% of students often have professional burnout, lack of interest, and learning inability. Some of the students often show down of intellectual reaction and ability. And 44% of respondents often feel disappointment with the lost time and opportunity due to war. And the most interesting is that 40% of all respondents often fear for their families' safety. And the next slide shows that 36% of respondents often feel stress caused by a prolonged absence of bombing and enemy attacks, expecting unpredictable methods of attack and inability to cope with the danger. And the next question will be only 6% of the students feel a lack of media awareness and fact-checking skills, and half of the students never feel the inability to detect fake news from the real news. And finally, we are right at the insights and project implementation stage. I have conducted the sentiment analysis of the information content of Reddit users. The algorithm of Reddit sentiment analysis consists of 5 stages. I have collected data, then proceeding this data, then feature extraction, sentiment analysis, and post-proceeding and visualization. Sentiment analysis methods of Reddit users content classify the text into 3 sentiment categories as positive, negative, and neutral. Today, dissemination spreading through the Reddit is a big problem for each country, like Ukraine and Canada and USA and other countries. So I have collected the database of more than 2,000 posts on Reddit with the keywords Canadian Institute of Ukrainian Studies and its abbreviation, and analyze the tone of all posts. As we can see, 34% of all posts have a positive tone, 49 neutral, and 70 is a negative. And another keyword is University of Alberta, and I collect with a program in software Python 723 posts of Reddit users, and 25 is positive, and only 11% is negative. And the next slide, we will speak about Yaroslav Gunka case. The power of Russian propaganda is in action. We can see this during the transformation of a good event. News about the invitation to Yaroslav Gunka by Justin Trudeau to bad news with the help of the mechanism of information influence and information disorder to destroy Canada and Ukraine cooperation and reduce support for Ukrainian by Canada. And according to Google statistics, more than 20,000 web pages were created only from September 2023 to April 2024 with the keyword Hunka. However, from 1925 to 2023, it's 98 years. It has been near 6,000. And online users from Canada, China, France, Grenada, the USA, the UK, Italy, Switzerland, and other less powerful countries visit the website using the Yaroslav Gunka with keywords Yaroslav Gunka according to statistics from Serpstat. It's Canada and USA. China is a more visited pages. Please look at the most popular search terms related to the Yaroslav Gunka case in Canada. It's Yaroslav Gunka University is of Alberta, Yaroslav Gunka Canada, and other. And there is top online resources. This list include nationalpost.com, CBC, the Globe and Mail, Wikipedia, Twitters. This list of online resources where publication about Yaroslav Gunka are popular in Canada is very interesting. And also we can see the resource as Reuters, Toronto Sun, BBC. The event was widely spread in the USA as well. Online user visited the website about the event and Yaroslav Gunka case, such as CBC, Politico.eu, Washington Post, Reuters, The Guardian, Euronews.com. In Ukraine, the user use only three search term. It's Yaroslav Gunka in Ukraine, Yaroslav Gunka SS Galachina, and Yaroslav Gunka Canada. And this term I use in Ukrainian language, as I say. In Ukraine, this case has not attracted as much attention. This information attack is aimed at Canadian to destroy Canada-Ukrainian cooperation and reduce Canada's outstanding support for Ukrainians. Also, I have collected the data set of 253 posts on Reddit with the keywords Yaroslav Gunka and analyze the tone of all posts. As we can see, the most post is NATO, 220, and not only is a lot post negative, is 53, and the highest number of negative posts on Reddit about Yaroslav Gunka was published in 2023. And as we can see from diagram, there was a twofold increase in the number of negative and neutral posts on Reddit about Yaroslav Gunka in 2024 compared to 2022, as shown by the correlation between the frequency of posts and the data of publication. Most of the posts about Yaroslav Gunka were published on Reddit in September and October 2023. I'm sorry, without various indicators included Canada, international news, and content suggestion, as we can see here. And the spreading of this information is very quick and unpredictable. There are an example of fake news about the Yaroslav Gunka case published by bot fake users. You can see on Reddit is presented on this slide. And there are a three-relation model of spreading dissemination, and every online users need to use this model for fact-checking all information. And fact-checking skills and detecting fake news from real news are in information wartime is very actual, and it's a very big problem for our online society. And in this modern time of war, the skill of detecting fake news is crucial, and use of algorithm of online content checking before sharing information spread is shown in the slides. And in conclusion, a huge volume of unverified information bring digital stress to online users and affect the information brand of powerful people, companies, in our case, university, and countries in general. And each Online users must enhance their own fact-checking ability to prevent the disinformation. And in the final, I would like to say huge thanks to University of Alberta team, especially the virtual DUSS scholarship team and the Canadian Institute of Ukrainian Studies for their support of Ukrainian scholars. Thank you, Canada, for support, and this support helps victory of Ukraine. And here is my contact. And thank you for your attention. I'm finished.
Thank you, Solomia.
And sorry for technical issue.
Now we have time, a little bit of time for Q&A session. So if you have any questions, you need to post those questions in Q&A window. This is a reminder to our online audience. So while we are connecting the questions, so I will probably use the privilege of being the chair of this panel and ask several questions. So my first question is for Oleksiy Haran. And I was really, it was really interesting to see the recent information, statistic information that was released by the Rachkov Center. And what struck me, this is the level of distrust to anti-corruption institutions. Could you explain why we have such distrust? Because in Ukraine, I know that sometimes we see that those institutions need to be actually trusted because they are fighting corruption, but simultaneously they are distrusted.
Yeah, I think it's not surprising because look, even if we have the some things, positive things done by these institutions, but nevertheless, you know, corruption remains, and it remains at a different level of power. And because we are a democratic country, even during the war, so these questions are widely discussed. And you know how journalists work. So they are not interested, you know, in giving positive examples. They're interested in scandals. So partially this may explain this distrust. So there is a background for that, definitely, but also it's public perception. You know, it's like with corruption in general. After 2014, corruption in Ukraine decreased almost immediately, right? Because the whole spheres were moved out of the shadow gray zone. But because after 2014 we received the freedoms to criticize everybody and to discuss everything, that's why under Yanukovych it wasn't discussed, but now it's discussed, as we say, from any iron, you know, from any source of any kind of media. And that's why in perception of Ukrainians, corruption increased, which wasn't the case. So basically, we should be very careful. It's another story, but we should be very careful about all these international ratings, including the rating by Transparency International. So it may give you some trends, but sometimes it reflects not the real level of corruption, but people's perception about
it. Okay, thank you. And we have question for Dr. Bessonova from Olena Uvarova. Dear Dr. Bessonova, perhaps you covered some aspects of acculturization, acceptance of new culture in your report. I would like to clarify whether the respondents you interviewed observed such stages as honeymoon, enjoyment of new culture, and cultural shock, misunderstanding of some characteristics of new culture. How does this affect their desire to return to Ukraine?
Okay, thank you very much for this question. It's really interesting. I can't tell now that I can really insert like stages of these things. But when there was a open question, what is your attitudes toward the society where now you live? There are very different opinions, and among them there were very many positive opinions, and many Ukrainians who took part in my survey, they answered that okay, it's very close to Ukraine in some way, and people described that, but more positive things, and it was not culture shock. So in none of these open answers which I received, there was no shock. So people probably know something about countries where they already live. I mean, through travel or like mass culture or communicating with other people. So no culture shock. But many of them described that, okay, it's very close to Ukraine and people are kind and they are open and sometimes they are naive. And another attitude, it was like, okay, people in the country where I'm now, they are not like Ukrainians. There is more order, the laws are working and something like that, but no culture shock. And I didn't unfortunately have this opportunity to compare. I collected materials, but don't have opportunity to analyze it, to compare these things in this social media, I mean social networks and in this survey, because in survey they know that these answers are not open to everybody, but in social networks people, you know, sometimes they are not openly showing their mind. But at least in both of these sources of my information for materials for my research, for sure there was no culture shock. I hope that in a very short way I answer your question. Thank you.
Thank you, Maryna. Vitaliy, I have also a short question for you about the future cooperation and the future of Ukraine's integration with the market in the European Union. And particularly, it's connected to the situation that we have at this moment at the border with Poland, when Ukrainian agricultural products they cannot leave the country, and farmers, particularly in Poland, they are protesting against all kind of border crossings of our products. Could you comment on this and like just how it will affect the future cooperation?
Thank you for this question. Question is very important, but we need to analyze that when we speak about nowadays, we have combination of economy problem in this way. We have combination of propaganda problem, and we have some combination of political situation. It's normal that farmers organize this process because we live in a market economy and it's normal conditions. Because if we remember, for example, 10 years ago, the same situation was between Poland and Germany, for example, because products in Poland which produce were most cheaper than in Germany. It's market situation. It's not a bad for our future relations, and people from Ukraine understand this and people from Poland understand this. It's a very bad that we have such situation in a period of war. So it's make more slower our integration to European Union, but we choose this way, we move in this way, and we have this war because we choose way to European Union and to European standards. So I think we need to move in this way. We need to make some transformation and some reform in our agrarian sector, because we need to analyze that we have a lot of problems. We need to find a way from these problems. We need to make some another structure of our agrarian sector, because it's impossible if we have only agrarian holdings, very big company which have very good economy result but not very good social and ecology result. So we move in this way. we not move so quickly like we want, but I think it's only one way to Europe, to European integration, and to make our agrarian sector more stronger, not only to use raw materials, but as I told, organize some processing in our rural territory. It will be better for Ukraine and for Europe.
Thank you, Vitaliy. Probably your answer is connected to Solomia's also presentation about disinformation, misinformation, because what we see, what is happening at the border, is also narrated and by some forces that are probably in Russia, just to make sure that the cooperation is weaker between two neighboring countries. So maybe Solomia, you can comment on the aspect of the propaganda in this case.
I think that it's really a political issue, but propaganda is very high in our information space, and also not in Ukrainian information space, and in Poland information space, in Canada information space, and Russian propaganda have a huge financial help from government of Russia, and I don't know how we can deal with this level of propaganda. This level is very high, and Ukrainian haven't enough ability and haven't enough money to prevent this propaganda.
Thank you, Solomia.
It's an open question for us.
Yeah. And Yewhen, thank you also for a really interesting presentation, because we understand that the casualties of war, not only human, but also for the culture. And what is the attention of your project in the future? How you are going to use the results of your project in the future? So to my question.
Oleksandr, thank you very much for your question. I think it's very important, but it's a very difficult question. For me, complex question. I have no simple answer to this question. I think that our project is very significant, very important, because we collect different views from different experts of Ukrainian culture heritage community. But at the same time, when we say about national strategy of preserving, of re-evaluation of Ukrainian heritage, we have a very hard question: how we used these outcomes of our project within the national strategy, or some regional plans of preserving culture heritage. And I don't know how we do this. I believe that culture heritage is a very important basis for culture dialogue and social common understanding. And within our interviews, we look for some a common point for our respondents and our audience, and very important that experts and my colleagues emphasize that culture heritage extremely important. But we also plan to have plan to revaluation some part of this heritage, but not destroyed physically this dissonant heritage, but maybe rethinking this heritage. Maybe we must musification, I mean soft form of musification, some part of dissonant heritage. That is my question. That is my answer. Thank you.
And we have one more question for you, Yewhen, from Yulia Devyatko. What strategies of cultural heritage preservation did you determine in terms of cooperation with the community to increase the awareness amongst the Ukrainian people of the necessity to preserve Ukrainian cultural heritage?
Yes, thank you for this question, because this issue still remains unresolved. Of course, I have several suggestions related to some modernization of the field of the culture heritage preservation in Ukraine. First of all, I believe that it's necessary to create a unified digital system for monitoring of culture heritage and culture properties in Ukraine. Yesterday, Ministry of Culture and Information Policy of Ukraine present new digital resources, e-Pamyatki. But this is only first step for this way. Also, it's important to expand powers and resources for the regional and municipal culture heritage bodies. It's very important. And also, as well, important to deepen collaboration between volunteers movement, state bodies. I mean, first of all, Ministry of Culture and Information Policy of Ukraine, but also different departments, city departments, city councils, which realize some policy within the culture heritage fields. State bodies and the international organization. It's also important, and Ukraine needs long-term support. Actually, as well as far as you know, it's also a big deal, because Ukraine needs long-term support in the sphere of culture, and especially sphere of culture heritage protection.
Thank you, Yewhen. Thank you. And I think it is a right moment for us to end today's discussion. We already have been discussing really important.
I'm really sorry. There was another question, I believe, from Oliver. So about university should no, you don't. Okay, fine.
If you actually, it can be the last question that how institutes like universities and colleges help Ukraine navigate this period. So this is a really general question. So if you want to answer, so probably it will be our last question today.
Okay, I can try to answer. Okay.
Yeah.
So basically, the paradox is that with the start of full-scale invasions, the cooperation between universities in Ukraine and in the West increased, and definitely the number of Ukrainians, both professors and students. So, well, on the one hand, this is positive. On the other hand, so we need to understand that definitely there would be a brain drain from Ukraine, and the more time people are staying in another country, the more they are integrated, the lesser chances for them to come back to Ukraine. Yeah, but this is the reality. Okay, so our Ukrainians, even abroad, and you know, your institute is a very good example. They can do a lot for Ukraine. However, given this specific effect, I would stress that it's very important not only to help Ukrainians who are abroad, not only to enroll Ukrainian students, but also to have cooperation with those who are staying in Ukraine. This is very important. And basically, this project that you have and we are participating in, so this is a good example for that. But definitely there could be more. For example, Kyiv-Mogil Academy has a collaborative project with Toronto University. So I'm talking about Department of Social Scientists. People are going to Toronto to discuss the issues. University of Toronto sending their professors to Ukraine. But at the end, the research is done here in Ukraine. So professors are staying here in Ukraine. I think it's really important.
Somebody wants to comment on the question?
I can just add a few words. I
Yeah.
completely agree that cooperation and in different forms is very good opportunity because this is the way where we have an opportunity to spread Ukrainian narratives. Because I have just a few days ago, I led some kind of transatlantic students discussion, and we were talking about the war, and it's unfortunately, a lot of people don't know the real reasons and the circumstances and so on. And Russian, not even propaganda, but just Russian point of view is dominated in the world, not Ukrainian. And all type of cooperation, roundtables, symposiums, conferences, books, articles, research, this is a way to spread Ukrainian point of view and Ukrainian position. So that is, I'm very thankful for Canadian Institute of Ukrainian Studies, Alberta University, this initiative, that it is one of the ways which we used to spread Ukrainian narratives. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Vitaliy, Yewhen, Solomia, do you want to comment on this question?
Yes, I want to add that this cooperation is very important for Ukraine because when we speak about people who stay now in Ukraine, we understand situation which we have now. This situation change every day. And it's very important to communicate. It's very important that we have opportunity to take part in some lectures in another university. It's very important that we have opportunity to communicate with students, young people, because as I told, we have a lot of level of war, and one of this level, it's a propaganda. So we need to analyze situation which we have. We need to speak from Ukrainian cities. We need to show pictures and view from our windows and tell about what we have nowadays and in what conditions we live, because a lot of people, they believe only in information from TV set, in information propaganda. That is why it's very important that university organize such activity.
Yewhen?
Yes. Actually, it's very significant because actually there are many programs to support researchers, support scholars from Ukraine. These programs, I believe, crucial for continuing research in times of war. However, I have a question. Is stable cooperation possible or not? Yes or no? That is another question. For example, our experience, I mean, myself and my colleague, our experience of cooperation with CIUS has been entirely positive. We also currently establishing cooperation with the Indiana University in Bloomington and prepare a joint project on digital heritage preservation and digital heritage and rethinking heritage in digital form. But my question is stable cooperation possible or not? I think it's a very important question.
Thank you. And Solomia.
I agree with Maryna. We need spirit Ukrainian narratives in online services, in cooperation with university, and it's very important at this stage of war, information war.
Yeah, thank you. I agree with all of the statements that just were voiced by our distinguished scholars, guests, and speakers of our symposium today. And on this note, I want to thank you for being a part of this initiative and doing your work, which is recognized not only in Ukraine, but here in Canada and worldwide. And thank you for being in your relative fields. Thank you.